Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Schellerud from Ad Advance, and today I am joined by one of our team members, Kedene. Welcome. So, Kedene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I wanted to have Kedene on, there's many reasons. So first, just going way back. So Kedene was actually the first person who I started working with as I was starting my seller business. And so wanted to talk to Kedene about that. She was also the first person to truly join Ad Advance along with Matt and I, helping us out from the very early days. Yeah. And throughout that whole period, Kedene's either been managing my seller account or now a seller herself on Amazon. And so figured there was a ton to unpack. And then probably the last thing is, so Kedene lives in Jamaica, but she's up here in Minnesota joining us in the office right now, which has been awesome. So just wanted to take the time to sit down and kind of talk through all these different pieces with you. We can cover the seller side, we can cover the initial stages of Ad Advance, and then kind of through the whole progression. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Joe. It feels a little bit weird to be on this side because I'm usually working on the podcast. On the other side, just kind of editing, the videos, getting those up, working on the artwork and on the overview. Yeah. So when you invited me to be a guest, I was like, it's a little weird to be on this side.
So Kedene has listened to every one of our podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
She's edited every one of our podcasts and helped get them out. So Kedene does a lot on our marketing side. So yes, welcome to this side of the microphone.
Yeah, thank you. So I hope I do a really good job, but yeah, I'm happy to be here. So thanks for inviting me to be a guest.
Yeah. So kind of give us a quick background, let's start initial stages, before seller, and then when we started working together, on our seller business, kind of give us an initial background.
Yeah, I started out as a virtual assistant. I was in pharmacy school, completed my bachelor's of pharmacy at the time, and I joined Upwork, and I was just looking for part-time jobs. Sure. And I saw your job, I applied, we had an interview, and I applied to be your virtual assistant. You hired me, and we started working together there on Duluth Labs. Yep. That must have been in 2016, so a couple years back.
Yep.
And things were so different at that time, but at that time I also thought it was so fun.
Sure.
It was really new. All I knew was the sciences and pharmacy, and now I'm learning about e-commerce and selling products online. I had no clue Amazon had individual sellers. I thought all products were sold by Amazon themselves.
Yeah.
So when you introduced me to the seller side, it was really fun, super interesting.
Yep. And kind of working back through so my seller journey. So I had started in 2014 and started with, initially it was retail arbitrage. Mm-hmm. And so finding different products at different stores. At the time I was selling a lot of different backpacks or sporting equipment or different things like that, finding them for a lot cheaper on clearance, and then reselling them on Amazon. Yeah. And then started listening to some different podcasts and heard about this private labeling thing, and got into that. And early on, as I got into that, realized that I needed some help. Yeah. And so I went to Upwork to try to find some help, a virtual assistant. Yeah. And there Kedene was. She's just grown through all the different stages of the seller journey for sure.
Yeah. And when we started, I think you were definitely getting your sales were picking up quite a bit too. Yep. And you're like, okay, I need some more help, and I think I can grow this thing a little bit more. Yeah. And
what were the first things that I had you working on? Just looking back.
I think the first thing was we talked about how can we improve the product based on reviews. Sure. So I remember kind of just going through the reviews, and we talked about just ways on how we can actually improve the product so that we are, making sure our customers are okay.
Just looking at the direct feedback we were getting.
Correct. Working on the packaging at that time. We added a couple stuff. I remember, a really card that we inserted inside of the molecular model kits. Yeah, which was really fun. So we just I think our initial project was just to work on improving the product.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And as we kept growing, there were other pieces that I had to let go of.
Yeah.
So I remember you taking over like the customer support side.
Oh, yeah.
And we did some different outreaches outside of Amazon too. And so really trying to boost our direct sales
Correct.
overall, selling an educational product.
Yeah.
We could go directly to like professors. And so
Correct.
I know that you managed a lot of those pieces too.
Correct. Yeah, and that was super fun. Coming from a science background,
Yeah.
I think it was a lot easier for me to communicate with the professors and kind of just like answer a lot of their technical questions about the product and how they could actually, make these different 3D shapes in organic chemistry.
Yep.
So yeah, it wasn't super hard on the technical side coming from a science background, and that was super cool.
Yeah.
Because then we built up really good relationships with some of these professors. They really liked our product, and we got some outside sales, like sales outside of Amazon,
Yeah.
using that method too. So yeah, that was.
And I
fun.
remember the initial communications that you had too, coming from Jamaica.
Oh, yeah.
You guys write so much more like, I wouldn't say strict, but formal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm just trying to
Oh yeah.
turn down the formality a
Yeah.
bit. But it worked out perfectly too, because we were working with college professors and like chemistry professors who are a little bit more used to that.
Hello, Professor. So
Yeah.
yeah, I remember. I think I may have my first email may have started with "Dear Professor Anderson" or something like that, and
Yep.
you're like, okay, let's remove the "dear" and say hi, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, looking back from the seller side, like, it felt a lot easier back then to launch
yeah.
products and get it going. Like, what are some key takeaways, like from the early years, and we can work our way to like the later years or recent times? Like, what were some key things that you saw that you felt like were easier at those times?
I think it was just overall easier to enter the market.
Sure.
We're talking about like the U.S. market in particular. It was a lot easier, less competition, and it was just, now Amazon is so strict too with like, what you can do. I mean, they always have their guidelines, but
Sure.
they're a lot more strict, of course, because of the increased traffic that they're getting. More people want to sell, so they have to.
Yep.
So I think it was just a lot easier to enter the market, less competition.
Back at the time, you could give away products in exchange for a review, and that was
Exactly.
totally legit and legal.
Exactly. Now
Yeah.
you cannot do that.
Definitely cannot do that now.
Right.
Yeah, and so I agree. I felt like it was a lot easier to launch new products just because there was just that lack of competition.
Correct.
Yeah, it seemed like at the time Amazon's major goal, which I think it was try to expand their catalog as much as possible.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
now it seems like their goal has really transitioned to, all right, let's focus on those highest quality products
Yeah.
and drive the majority of people to that.
Yes.
Where before it felt much more based on variety. And if you
Yes.
had a product that truly did stand out, it was a lot easier to launch because, it wasn't so tuned to those products that have 10,000 reviews. You
Correct.
could still get visibility.
You could still get visibility, just starting at just a few reviews, and you could give away stuff like you said, and it was so much easier.
Sure.
And now, you just have to be, I think you really have to be a bit more calculated with what you're doing. I mean, now there's an increase in Amazon's fees and stuff like that, so just how you are entering the market and stuff like that, you really have to kind of just be a little bit more calculated just to make sure it all makes sense.
Sure.
And you're making a profit,
Yeah.
and not just making sales. Yeah. So
Yeah. So you've kind of been our Swiss Army knife and over the years. And so you tend to adapt to many different roles and you can teach yourself many different roles. So you started out a pharmacy student and then got into the seller side.
Yeah.
Kind of walk through on the ad advance side, like where we started getting you involved there. And then we can kind of go into how the roles evolved over time.
Yeah. I think I started as a VA too for the agency. You guys you had a few clients.
Sure.
You were working on the tech side, and there were just small pieces you needed some help with. So it could be billing, it could be like just sending out emails to these clients, just small pieces. I remember small administrative task.
Sure.
And I would just take them. I
remember you taking, before we had our system and our software, and this really drove getting our system and software in place. Billing, going through that, but then pulling all the reports. Do you remember that? When we would just carve out a whole day of the weekend and we would go through and pull reports, and then we would input them into my spreadsheet, which was our software at the time, and crank through that to get reports and everything.
Yeah, I remember on Sundays, it would be a Sunday task.
You, me, and Matt.
Yeah.
You would pull the reports. Matt and I would be cranking through all the different generated reports, the optimizations, everything like that, working through bugs as the spreadsheet crashed.
Correct. I remember that. I remember the days when, definitely ran into a couple errors. I'd be pinging Matt or you, just like, hey, I'm not able to pull these reports. Can I get some help? And we would work together to try and figure that out. So,
Yep. And through each stage of this process, it's fun to look back. And I love episodes like this because when we started at Advance, and actually we technically started as Lake State Consulting. Yeah. So we were Lake State Consulting for a year or two before we rebranded to Ad Advance. We didn't have this grand plan for growing our agency to where it is today, or building out all of the software tools that we had. Each step we just saw different pieces that we wanted to try to simplify or automate.
Right.
And so, you going in and pulling reports, it was like, man, this is a major pain point. Let's just try to fix this one piece.
Yeah, and pretty time consuming too. Yep. And I remember you're saying, hey, we're going to work on a way to just make this a lot easier and just make it a lot quicker.
Sure.
Because then we can, there are just other things that we can do.
Yep. And potentially error prone too, as you're going through and trying to pull, 100 different reports. There's always one that gets missed or different things like that. And so if we can automate that into the system, like the same with billing.
Yeah.
So you and I used to work through that. We had a spreadsheet put together. I had some macros in the background. It would generate a bunch of emails. You remember all this?
I remember that. Wow. Just looking back at those stages too.
Sure.
We've grown quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
It hasn't been that long ago.
I know, but just the improvement in how we are doing things. Yeah. That's nice to see.
Yeah. So within Ad Advance, it's been kind of fun. So pharmacist to Amazon virtual assistant to Amazon seller to now digital marketing coordinator. And so right now what Kedene does is she kind of helps tie together all the different items we have on our marketing side. So, managing our CRM, making sure that we're getting in contact with different people who are reaching out and trying to get different account reviews or things like that, making sure we're keeping everything moving in the background. Walk me through how you've been able to pick up these different skill sets.
One, I think I take the very similar approach where as we're working on these pieces, we want to try and improve them. We want to try and find ways to just do it a lot better. And I started with the digital marketing side. I'd say maybe we saw a need to just having a presence on social.
Sure.
And we just talked about setting up your profile or just improving your profile, because I think you already had a Facebook profile.
Yep.
And we're like, okay, how can we just have you start sharing content?
Sure.
And I would just kind of teach myself YouTube, Google,
Yep.
and just learn a little bit more, and I'd dive in. So, all right, what are the things that we want to do on Facebook? What are the things that we want to do on LinkedIn? And I just took it a step at a time. How are we going to create our website? I think when we worked on Duluth Labs, you had me create Duluth Labs website.
Sure.
We worked on that together.
Yep.
So that was sort of my first hands-on experience. And then I took a couple courses for sure.
Yeah.
Helped you to work on the first Lake State, website, and just how can we continue to improve that. And that was my trick. Just YouTube, Google, short courses. And I taught myself,
And now diving deep into the CRM and workflow automation. So, for those who don't know, if we get a new client, we have this full setup process where we fill out a form with all the different information, and it kicks off different tasks in Microsoft Teams for us. It sends out notifications. It updates our analytics dashboard. It updates multiple things in the CRM. There are so many things that happen in the background, and for any of these repeat repeatable tasks, we try to set up different workflows or items to make sure that, we're not missing anything as we go. Yep. And making sure that we're incorporating any learnings we had, like, hey, this would make the new client process smoother. Let's incorporate this into our workflow.
Correct.
So any new client in the future has it. And, those are some of the pieces that you taught yourself too, is now how to build out like workflows and how to kind of connect everything together.
Yeah. And that's been, I think, a major part of who I am. I am a planner and I love to see the details. I definitely focus on the smaller details and just connecting everything.
Sure.
So when we had like tasks like that, I would get super excited. It's like, okay, Joe, I can help you to build out this process or just to make sure we're not missing anything. Yeah. And that's where you and I just started to work on the workflows. And that's definitely a piece that I do manage today and truly enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Kedene's she's one of the glue pieces that kind of holds our sales and marketing team together, and just managing all these different pieces to make sure we're not missing anything. Yeah. And then trying to constantly improve our processes as we go.
Correct.
So as you've grown through those pieces too, as AdAdvance has grown, I've had less and less time on the seller side, and eventually made the call that, hey, I just had to focus strictly on advertising. Yeah. So now you have totally taken over the seller account, Duluth Labs. And so how's that been going? Like, any key initial learnings as you've been managing it fully yourself? I
would say it's been going great. Two, definitely just making sure that there was a clean transition. I've definitely been focused on that. And then maintaining our relationships that we currently have with these bookstores, these vendors, which have been awesome. So that's really like a key focus for me, is to just make sure we have some of those relationships just outside of, the typical sales that you're getting on the Amazon platform, which is awesome. Yeah. But also just to keep your relationships with your wholesale buyers, if you do have wholesale buyers, or individual customers or vendors or whoever you're working with too, while managing the Amazon, Shopify ecosystem too. So key takeaway for me, I think, is just maintaining all of that and make sure that I keep the firm foundation that you've built.
Sure. So yeah. Another key takeaway, managing sales taxes is horrible. Kedene's managed sales taxes for us too throughout the years. That is probably the most exciting thing that I've been able to drop, is just not having to deal with sales taxes. You
know what? Now Amazon does sales tax. But when you have a Shopify store and you're getting orders there, you still have to work with those guys, all these different states. I don't know. I'm still not an expert, still trying to figure it out each day. Yeah. But I think I've done a pretty decent job of just keeping us, okay. Yeah. But that for sure is definitely, it's just a side. Like, once you're selling products, it's just something that you have to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I'm interested in learning, and we haven't really talked about this, but you're one of the few team members that works remotely, and most of the team is here in Duluth, Minnesota. So what's your perspective been on the company culture, especially working remotely? And then what's your thoughts now that you've been here with the team for a while? Anything that surprised you or stuck out?
One, we have a great culture of just supporting, all our collaborative efforts. We go all out in just reaching out to each other just to make sure, one, we're up to speed, we're understanding our individual tasks. So we do, even though I am remote, I get that. I don't really feel too distant because we have our weekly meetings. We have meetings daily meetings. So we're constantly communicating. Sure. And if there are any issues, any concerns, any questions, you guys are just so open. It's just so easy to talk to someone from the team. Sure. I would say being in office, it's way better. It's still pretty good remotely, but now that we are right next to each other, that's awesome. Here, I could just get up and I could go to your desk. I'm like, hey, Joe, I have a quick question. But if I was also working remotely, I could also just easily shoot you a message and you're pretty responsive. And I'm seeing that consistently across like everyone on the team. We respond pretty quickly. So I really do like that. But yeah, I think those are like the key things, is just like how we communicate or how we collaborate, how we stay on top of everything that we're doing, and also keep each other accountable.
Sure.
Whether you're remote or in the office, it is the same thing. Like, it doesn't change. I just think in person, it's just it's easier access to communicate, and that's the only difference.
And that's one thing where we have gone somewhat against the grain, especially lately, is having establishing the office culture. We started fully remote, and then as we started to feel that benefit, that's kind of what drove us to have the office environment. That's why anybody who's managing accounts for our clients, they're all in the office, just because we see a lot of value with interaction. There is definitely downsides. You have to commute into work each day, and you have people who are located in Jamaica that can't be here right now. And so there's definitely a give and a take, but that's the key reason why we have gone more office based. From that is just, we feel there's a benefit just being able to, like you're saying, just be able to turn around and talk to everybody. But what's nice is we can go remote at any time too.
Right, which is super nice. So if you're not feeling well, it's okay. Yeah. You can stay home.
Still
and
keep the flexibility. It's not like you have to be here. But.
Exactly. You don't have to, but it's really nice. And I can see if you're in a role where you're managing accounts, just having your partner, your team member right next to you, it's so easy. So I can definitely see that being a plus for sure.
Yeah. So you've had to work with me for 7 years, 6 years. Yeah. So how has that been?
There are some awkward moments. I'm joking.
No, I'm sure there have been.
Just a little awkward. I'm joking. You help us to stay on our toes. You challenge us to, you challenge us to always just to think differently, think outside of the box, and to stretch ourselves. How can we continue to grow? Sure. And that's something that I appreciate about you. But it's been good. You've been easy to work with.
Kedene rolls with sometimes I can be pretty blunt. I don't have much of a filter on what I'm feeling, so I usually know exactly what I'm feeling.
Joe can be pretty blunt, but it's a good thing because we're transparent with each other. Sure. So if there's something that I do that you do not like or that I need to improve, there's no beating around the bush. I will know. Sure. And
at the same point, you will hold me accountable too, which I love.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that also stems from you in regards to the culture that we have here within the office or as a team. The level of transparency, I would say that really came from you and who you are as a person too. So, yeah.
Part of it is I'm just really bad at reading. Just tell me what you're feeling because I don't know.
Joe is I don't know what you're saying. Just let me know. Just be very direct, straightforward. Yeah. Do not beat around a bush. Just let me know.
That's awesome. Yeah. Nice. Well, it has been so awesome having you here.
Yes, thank you. It is really fun. It's fun to see the city of Duluth. Yep. Oh my gosh, so beautiful, so nice. So it's fun.
And then it's fun too. So Rochelle, who's another person who works on our lead and marketing side, also up from Jamaica too. Kedene and Rochelle have both been staying with us at our house for the last week and a half, and so it's been a blast. We've had a ton of fun touring around Duluth, and we get to play tourists for a little bit too, which has been sweet.
That's nice. Thank you, Joe.
So no, this has been fun, just kind of looking back because there's been so many stages, and it's you get so focused on the day and what's the next thing that it's really fun to take a look back and see just a few short years ago where we were and where we've come.
Sheets.
The very beginning. So nice. No, well, thank you for walking through both your experience as a seller and then joining Ad Advance, and a key takeaway is Kedene's her perspective and how she's able to teach herself new skills, and just really be versatile, starting from pharmacy school, now managing our digital marketing. It's pretty cool to see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. So I hope you got something out of this episode. It was really fun for us to
Yeah.
go through. So, as always, we really appreciate you listening to the Ad Project podcast. And like we say at the end of every episode, we'll see you on the next episode.
See you on the next episode.
Yeah.